Alright, we've got another video coming to you today for the 2019 Honda Grom. Big install. I've been waiting for a few parts to get here, and I've kind of just been procrastinating doing it. I probably could have done this a week ago, but we've got some time, and I'm going to be throwing all this together for you. We've got the modded oil pump from Straight Up Pumps, 60% stiffer clutch springs. We've also got a Coso and a Chimera clutch lifter plate. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use, but y'all will figure that out on the back side of the video. We've got a fresh new gasket, and we've also got an oil spinner gasket. I'm going to see if that needs cleaning out. This bike has just right over 1,000 miles, well past the break-in point that they suggest you install this stuff at. I've got my oil pan set up, ready to drain the oil. We're going to go ahead and start the video. First things first, we're going to be draining the oil. Fairly simple, just undo the screw. I think it's a 17 millimeter. I just put a little bit of tinfoil over my pipe, so hopefully the oil doesn't get all over it and stain it, because it will. I've had it done on multiple bikes. Let's go ahead and get that off. Anyways, let that drain. Okay, we've got the oil drained, and we've got the oil drain plug back in. I would recommend you go ahead and getting a crush washer for that. They're like $1. Don't be cheap. Now that we've got the oil drained out of it, we're going to lay the bike on its side. Okay guys, so sidetrack. I heard something rattling around in my airbox when I tipped the bike over on its side, so we're going to investigate what's been cramming shit up into my airbox. Somebody's getting ready for winter, which is like 6 months away. Okay, where did it go? Fucking telling you. Nice. Alright, anyways, back to the project at hand. Okay guys, now that you've got the bike on its side, I've got my plastics taken off, obviously, so you don't have to do that, but you're going to be taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 bolts out right there. Take those bolts out, and I'll meet you on the other side. Alright guys, after you get all 10 of those bolts out, some people suggest taking the rear set off. I'm trying not to do that. I've seen one guy that didn't look too smart. He bent this little bracket right here out of place. I mean, if that's what it takes to get this off without having to take my rear set and exhaust off, that's what I'm going to do. But it might be stuck, so you might need to hit it with a mallet, but mine just come off fairly easy. And yeah, I have a little bit of clearance issue right here, so we are going to take our time to get this off before we scratch anything up. Trying to keep everything pristine. Okay, so I was able to get the casing off without having to fully remove my rear set. I just loosened up all the main bolts that connected it to the bike's frame and the cross member for the subcage rear sets. It gave me enough room to tilt it up to be able to pull the casing off. As you see, I've already got my clutch lifter plate removed. That's the OEM one. I took 3 of the OEM springs out and replaced them with the 60% stiffer springs. We're going to see how that works. If it doesn't pull any better, I'll replace all the springs for the 60% springs. And we're going to be trying to remove this oil spinner, and we're also going to be removing this OEM oil pump. I went back to Straight Up Pumps, and you don't need to use any parts if you got the $70 modded sub pump rather than the Takagawa or whatever the other one was. I can't remember. But you just take this one out, 1, 2, 3 bolts, pull that out, install the new one. I'll show you exactly how that goes in. With those 3 bolts removed, you can just pop the old OEM oil pump out. We're going to be switching it with the modded oil pump. You can obviously see the difference with that press fit tube and the precision drill hole for the pass through. They do recommend pumping, not pumping, but priming the oil pump, so you're going to have to feed some oil in there and turn this cog to get it to prime itself, and then you can install it. Okay, guys, we got our oil pump. We already primed it. You've got to spin it, I think counterclockwise it was, to actually pump oil, because I was spinning it clockwise and it was making bubbles come out this end, so I figured it was pumping air out instead of in. So counterclockwise as you go if you're holding it this way. And then now we're going to be installing it into the engine. You've got to go into this back hole back here. I'm not sure if you can see that. There we go. Alright. Not this big back hole, but this small back hole right here. That's where it's going to go in, and then it should fit right up under. You better have very tight tolerances, so you might have to just finagle this in there, and there it goes. It's starting to seat. Alright guys, actually I've got to take this back out because I forgot I removed my dowel pins so they didn't fall out when I drained the engine again. Alright guys, so just finagle this one back out. Try not to bend that copper tubing. You know, copper tubing is not very, it even looks like I got like a flat spot right there, but I think it'll be alright. Anyways, we're going to put our dowel pins back in for the oil pump. There's 2 of them. There's actually a 3rd one, but it's for the engine case right here. If you can see that. It comes in and out. It's basically just a spacer. So we're just going to go back in that back hole. Make sure it's seated on our dowel pins. Alright guys, I think it's seated properly. Let's just make sure. Get our 3 10mm bolts. Go ahead and start threading them in there. And I'm not sure if you should use any kind of like high temp sealant on these. I'm not really sure how hot that engine gets. Probably not that hot. I don't think they had anything on it when I took it out, so I'm just going to torque it down to the specifications, which I think is like 8 Newton meters, and we'll just go with that. Hopefully we don't strip anything along the way. Alright, we're going to torque this down. Alright, so once you get your oil pump in and your 3-pin starter, you got to make sure that this little spinner gear back here is caught between the teeth on this other gear. You definitely don't want to try and tighten this down if it's not seated properly, because you could wind up, I mean, it's plastic. I mean, you definitely don't want to break that, because that's what works the whole pump itself. Next thing we're going to do is the clutch springs and the upgraded lifter plate. Go ahead and get that put in. It's going to be a little more difficult than it was doing the original one, because we got the stiffer spring. We're going to have stiffer springs in it now. Let's bring that case in. Remember just to space them out. One original, one stiffer, one original, one stiffer, one original, one stiffer. have your clutch lifter plate, and you got to make sure that these do sit down in these little recesses, because they're there for a reason, people. And you just I think this is hacking up. We'll figure it out. Make sure all your springs are lined up when you go to tighten this down. Okay guys, we were able to get the ball bearing in the clutch lifter plate, but the bad news is when we went to go put that back on and tighten it down properly, I broke a bolt off in this plate. So we're gonna have to buy a new one of them, because I'm not gonna try to extract that. I'm gonna go with the 6-hole one, because this one only has 3 holes threaded, so maybe the 6-hole one will be a little bit better and won't put as much tension on the bolts themselves, because honestly I didn't even really get them that snug and it snapped off. I mean, these, I don't know if Honda's just using like garbage bolts or what, but that's my predicament now. And this is also the other bolt that I had broke off for the oil spinner gasket. And yeah, I got the new gasket on there and everything, and guess what? Snapped a fucking bolt off in it. So yeah, I've got to order that bolt. Actually, I'm gonna have to order 1, 2, 3, 4 clutch bolts, and that one oil spinner bolt, and then the actual plate behind this, and yeah, and then maybe we can get the red Grom back running. I've got the white one over there sitting pretty, and I'm not going to be taking it apart anytime soon because of problems like this. Alright, so we got our Chimera lifter plate and our 60% springs in, and we took off the oil spinner gasket and cover, and we cleaned the inside of that. I did not take the oil spinner off. I do not have the proper tool. My tool does fit it, but it's not long enough. It needs to be a little bit longer so it can fit over this shaft right here, because the ratchet hits it when it goes over. And I fucking broke off one of my bolts in my oil spinner. I tightened it down too tight and it snapped the head off. I am going to be buying a lightened oil spinner. I wanted to do that anyways, and this just gives me the reason I need to just go ahead and order it, and I'm probably just going to have to pay the core charge unless he'll accept this one with the broke off head in it. I'm going to run the cover and gasket without the third screw. I'm hoping that doesn't cause any problems internally. I don't think it will. I hope it doesn't. I think I could probably run it without the gasket and the cover, but I'd rather have it on there. I'm sure it's on there for a very good reason. I probably won't be running this bike very much until I get the new oil spinner. So just be careful with these bolts, guys. They fucking break very easily. They were not meant for a lot of stress or torque, and I did not torque these because my torque wrench I am having problems with, so I just torqued them down by hand, hand tight, snug with the wrench. I went to go a little bit tighter and it snapped it, and that's how easily they will break. But after this, we're just going to go ahead, put everything back together, get our new gasket on after we clean that off with some alcohol, put our casing back on, and we're gonna start it up and make sure that the oil is pumping up at the top of the head, and we'll see you there. Go ahead and get your casing back on. Okay guys, so we're back. This is like 2 or 3 weeks later. I'm gonna go back and show you that I did get the lightened oil spinner, and I've got the bolt replaced that I snapped and got everything back on. Was able to take this off with the tool I had. It is the right tool. It just doesn't fit on the impact all the way. And I did get the support plate replaced. I'm using a temporary screw, but it is the same as all the other ones. And I also snapped another fucking bolt off. And I'm telling you guys, I was working this one by one, a little bit at a time, all the way around. Started to get snug, snap! And that's how easy it is to snap these things. But I'm waiting on my Chimera silicone gasket right now. We'll get the case back on and we'll get this thing up and running, because DH Motoring just sent me my flash ECU and I'm ready to go ride this thing so the computer can learn. Okay guys, we got our clutch casing back on. We managed to get it on without stripping any more bolts. Be very careful with them. They do not take much to over tighten and either strip out the threads or tear the head off your bolt. Make sure you get your clutch cable installed correctly and it has tension on it. Mine did wind up slipping out and scratching my case a little bit. I'm pissed. But, you know, it's trial and error when you've never done it on this bike before. So we're learning as we go. I've got my rear sets tightened up. I need to tighten up my exhaust and I'll be pretty much done other than putting oil in the bike. We will get it tipped right side up and take the cover right here off the front side, and we will make sure that we're getting oil to the top of the head. Okay, so we got the SF back together other than the rear tire hugger at the moment. Got the flash ECU back from DHM. I've got my clutch casing back together, everything installed like it should be. Had to wait on the new gasket which came in today, and I probably put about 10 to 15 miles on it so far for the ECU after I did the ECU and the TPS reset, and this is how she sounded. Yeah. Oh yeah. I can smell the oil, but I believe what I'm smelling is the cam vent from a Veil. Had to put a filter at the top of it. Does make a little bit of a like puffing sound, like almost like it's trying to suck air back into the crank, even though it's venting it out. But I'm okay with that as long as it's not hurting anything. I'm good. Yeah, man, I think I'm almost done with this. I might get a little better exhaust. I don't really like this Ransoto. I do like the Zoom that I've got on the OG. It's really nice for $100. I mean, Jesus, that's like $100, and the Zoom's like $100, and I'd much rather have the Zoom Brute TDR from Tommy Davis. Oh my God, go check him out, guys. Go fucking pay his bills for him. Alright, that's the end of this video.